Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to discuss the fundamentals of Python programming language. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So this is how your course shall look like. I hope you have gone through the announcements, especially the announcement wherein I had posted the step-by-step instructions to access the textbook. Now, as it is written in this instruction, in this announcement, the textbook that we will be referring for this course is Think Python. Now, if we'll go through the modules here, I have posted two videos in this video demonstrations. The first video will walk you through how to navigate the course shell, and the second video, I have explained how to install VS Code. Now, VS Code is the IDE which we will be using in this course to run the Python programs. Again, you are free to use any IDE that you are comfortable with. Now, let's start. So, other than VS Code, we also have some online IDE that you can use. Well, I use REPL.it. It provides a white screen, which I am comfortable with. So for explanation, I'm going to explain, I'm going to use REPL. And for coding, I will use VS Code so that you are familiar with using VS Code as well. And I would suggest that you follow along with me, try to write down the code and follow me while I'm explaining. So let's start. So again, what is Python? Now, Python is a high-level, object-oriented programming language. So first thing that comes into mind is, what is a program? Right, this is a programming language, so you should know what does it mean by a program. What is a program? A program is a set of instructions given to a computer to do a particular task. Now, what is a programming language? To provide a set of instructions to the computer, you need a language, okay? That language is nothing but a programming language. Now, when we talk about Python programming language, it is a high-level, object-oriented programming language. Now, what does it mean by high level? High level programming language means a language in which the instructions are written into English-like words. Object-oriented programming is a paradigm, is a structure which we're going to talk about in the later modules of this course. So when I talk about when I talk about Python programming language, it is a high-level object-oriented programming language. Now, to learn the theory, if we'll go over the modules here, okay, well, the theory is explained in your textbook as well. Also, I have posted certain notes on your course shell. So if we'll go here, week 1 introduction. So herein, the requirements of this week is posted, the requirements, the deliverables, the demo, and herein the tutorials, Python tutorials is being posted. Okay, and you're free to use book, you're free to read these tutorials. These are the tutorials that I have posted is like notes, okay, the gist of what you'll read in your book. Then again, I have also posted a PDF over here, so you can download this PDF to learn more about the Python programming language fundamentals. So let's talk about it in detail. So first, comment in Python. Okay. So how do we comment in Python? When I say comment in programming language, comment is generally written for a third person to understand your program or to make your program more readable. A comment is not executable. It does not executes. It's just for a third person to understand what your program is doing. It's like you're putting a label on your notebook. Okay. So when you put a label on a notebook, you get to know that this is my English notebook, right? Similar to that, the comment is being used to make the program more readable and for a third person to understand what your program is doing. Also, when you refer to your program later, you will be able to understand what your program is doing. Now, comment in Python is generally written by preceding the line with a hash symbol. Okay, so when I write hash in front of any line, that is a single line comment. We call it as a single line comment. To write a multiple line comment, okay, so if I have to comment more than one line of code, we enclose the code into single quotes. These are called as single quotes. So if you'll notice here in all these things, I'm writing in between these single quotes. Okay, there are few things, few terms that I'm going to use while during explanation, and I want you to be familiar with those. So first thing, I'm gonna call this as hash symbol, or I'm gonna call it as pound. Now, next, this, I'm gonna call it as single quote. This, I'm gonna call it as double quotes. This, I'm gonna call it as slash. Then this, I'm gonna call it as colon. This, I'm gonna call it as parentheses or round brackets. This one, I'm gonna call it as curly braces or curly brackets. Okay, this one, square bracket. Okay, so I'm gonna use these terms a lot of times. So I just want you to be familiar with this. Okay, and this one, I'm gonna call it as F string. I'm gonna call it as F string. Okay, so let's see. Let's try to implement all these things. Okay, let's learn how does the Python work. So I'm gonna move this down. These are anyways comments, so it will not be executed. So as I said, the single line comment is preceded with a hash symbol. So let's say I'm going to write it as this is my first program. Okay. Now, whenever you want to print anything in Python, the syntax for that is write print, and whatever you want to print, put it in the parentheses. Okay. Inside the double quotes or single quotes. Now in Python, double and single quotes, both the quotes work. So I'm going to put it as double quotes. So let's say I'm going to say welcome to Python programming language class. Okay. So I wrote a print statement, and whenever you want to print something on the screen, you use a print statement, and whatever you want to print is enclosed inside either double quotes or single quote. Okay, and we call this as string. Okay, so I'm going to print a string. Anything that is enclosed into single or double quote is called as string. So let's see when I run this code. Okay, and it is giving me an error because I have used single quotes, 3 single quotes here as well while explanation. Okay, so I'm going to run this code again. And see, whatever I've written over here is being printed over here. Okay, so let's say I want to print an alphabet. Okay, a shape of an alphabet, not an alphabet, but a shape of an alphabet. So for example, my name is Pragati. So I just want to print P. Okay, so what I could do is I'll use a multi-line comment. I'm sorry, multi-line print statement. So I'm going to use multiple print statement. And let's say I'm going to print B. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's run this code. See, it looks like P. It doesn't look very nice though, but it looks like P, right? So what I would like you to do is maybe E will look better. So let's try E with P, right? Okay. Okay. Let's see. It looks like E, right? So what I would like you to do is try the initials of your name. So for example, my initial is P and D. So I'll just use P and D over here. Okay. I want you to print the letters side by side, not one below the other. So that means when you try to print it, I want you to print it like this. Okay, side by side, like this. Not one below the other, not like this. Okay, not like this. So I want you to print it like this. Just try. Okay. Now again, one more thing that you should understand is what does it mean by syntax? So basically, syntax are the rules used in programming. Okay, so like we use grammar to write a grammatically correct sentence, right? So similarly, in a program, it is important that you follow certain rules. If you do not follow those rules, you're going to get an error. Okay, so that is what is a syntax. Now, for example, herein, the syntax of the print statement, if you remember, I said you write the print and whatever you want to write down, you put it into single or double quotes. Now let's see, I'm going to write the print as print. I'm going to write print like this. Okay, and let's say I'm just going to write welcome. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to run it. And now see, it is giving me an error. Why? Because Python is a case sensitive language. What that means is uppercase and lowercase letters are treated as different. So that means print, which starts with a lowercase p, and print that starts with an uppercase p are both treated as different. So if you have used p, uppercase p, you're going to get an error. Now, the moment I'll convert it into a lowercase p and run the code, my code will run without an error. Okay. Why? Because again, Python is a case sensitive language. Python is a case sensitive language, means uppercase and lowercase letters are treated different. Now, next is what does it mean by a variable? Okay. Now, variables are used to store data. Variables are used to store data. It is nothing but a named memory location in your computer. Okay. So in your computer, a memory space will be reserved to store your data into it. Okay, that is what is a variable. The name of that memory space, which will be allocated to store your data, is called as, will be given a name and is called as a variable. Now, when you use a variable in Python, or in any programming language, it has to follow certain rules. So the rules to name a variable is the rules to name a variable is first, it can be consisting of alphabets from A to Z. It can be consisting of alphabets from capital A to capital Z, uppercase A to uppercase Z. It can be consisting of underscores. Okay. The second rule, it can be consisting of digits as well. So variable name can be consisting of alphabet from A to Z, I mean lowercase a to Z, uppercase a to Z, underscore and digits. The next, it can be consisting of digits, but it should not start with a digit. Again, it should not be a reserved keyword. It should not be a reserved keyword. So for example, if I name a variable as, let's say, number of students, I want to store a data of number of students in the class. Okay, so I'll name a variable number of students. The way we assign a value to a variable is we use an equals to sign. Okay, and let's say number of students equals to 40. Now, this is the name of the variable. This 40 is the value of the variable, equals to is the assignment operator using which we assign a value to a variable. Okay, I repeat, number of student is the name of a variable, 40 is the value of the variable, equals to is an assignment operator that is used to assign a value to a variable. Okay, so number of student, does it follow the rule? Yes, it consists of all the alphabets, right? So this is a valid variable name. However, if I'll use, let's say, total. Okay, is it a very valid variable name? Yes. If I'll say total 1, 2, 3, is it a valid variable name? Yes, because a variable name can be consisting of digits. If I'll use total underscore 1, 2, 3, is it a valid variable name? Yes, because it can be consisting of a underscore. Underscores are allowed. If I'll use 1, 2, 3 total, is it a valid variable name? No, it's not. Why? Because it is starting with a digit. A variable name cannot start with a digit. Okay. Now again, if I'll say number of students equals to 40. Is this a very valid variable name? No, it is not a valid variable name. Why? Because it has spaces in between. The spaces are not allowed. Okay, did I wrote space here? No. I wrote A to Z, capital A to Z, underscore and digit. The spaces are not allowed. Can it start with an underscore? Yes, it can start with an underscore. Now, what is a reserved keyword? Reserved keyword means the programming constructs that we use in programming. So for example, can I use a variable name as print? No. Print, we are using to print a statement, right? Can I use if? No. Can I use else? No. Can I use elif? No. So these are all the reserved keywords. Okay. Don't worry, you don't have to memorize all the reserved keywords. When you'll start programming, you'll automatically get a hold of it. Okay. So that's the rule to name a variable. Now the next thing is how to assign value to a variable and how to print a value of a variable. So let's say I have a variable I want to store the radius of a circle. Okay, so I'll create a variable radius. I'll assign a value 10 using an assignment operator, that is using an equal to sign. And then I want to print the value of the variable. So the way you print it is, there are various ways. So I'll say radius, this is the string, Okay, this does not contain the value. For example, let's say I'm going to run this program and see it is just printing radius. It is not printing the value of the variable. Now to print the value of the variable, what you do is you write the variable name without enclosing it into a double or a single quote. And notice that I have used a comma over here. Okay, because I'm separating the string with its value. So my string is radius because I've enclosed it into double quotes. And whenever you want to print the value of the variable, you just put it like this, okay, without enclosing it into double or single quote. So what your interpreter will do, it will take this value 10 and will substitute it for this radius. So let's see, when I run this code, it's printing radius equals to 10 or radius colon 10 because I put a colon over here. Okay, so I would have written it over like this as well. Okay, now the most common way to print the value of variable is not like this. Okay, nowadays, because with the data science and AI application, if you I guess you might be knowing that the Python is the most preferred language. So therein, we use f-string, okay? So the way f-string works is, you don't have to care about, you don't have to bother about the commas, putting commas at the right place, etc. But the way it works is, you write radius, okay? And whatever value you want to print, I mean the value of the variable, whenever you want to print the value of the variable, you're gonna put it inside the curly braces like this. Okay, so I'm gonna say my variable is radius. So it will print radius equals to radius. Let's see. Yep. So it will see here the value of the radius equals to 10. Okay. The way you do it is, this is a lowercase f, it is enclosed, and the other things are enclosed in between the quotes. You can use double quotes as well. Okay, that works as well. Now, the next thing is data type. Okay, so let's talk about data type. I'll also walk you through running the code in VS Code as well. Okay, it's just that I like using this screen as my board. So I'm using this screen. Now, data type. All this is also included in the tutorials that I have posted on the course shell. Now, what does it mean by a data type? Data type means type of data that a variable hold. Type of data that a variable holds. For example, if I'll talk about 10 or 13 or let's say 90 or let's say 4,000, these are all numbers without a decimal point, a whole number, right? Without any decimal point. So this is called as an integer data type. These are called as integers. Okay, we're going to talk about, it has 14 data types, but we're going to talk about 5 fundamental data types right now. And as we'll progress through each week, I'm going to introduce the advanced data types, which we also call it as data structure in Python later. So herein, we are going to talk about the fundamental data types. That is the data type that will get you started on the programming. So a number without a decimal point, we're going to call it as an integer, and we call it as an integer data type, and we use an abbreviation int for that. Okay, a number with, so first data type is integer. Okay, second, float. Okay, now herein, unlike other programming language where you have float, decimal, or byte short, long, we don't use those terms here. For all the whole numbers, integers, we're going to use int as integer data type. For all the numbers that contain a decimal point, we're going to call it as a floating point, float data type. Okay, so for example, 10.5 or 10.6, let's say 99 0.0. Okay, these are called as float data type. Now, third one is string. String means any word. Okay, so for example, you just saw I used word welcome, or I used word radius. Okay, even if you use a single alphabet like W or R, it will still be considered a string in Python. Okay, in other languages we call it as characters, but herein we just call it as a string. The next one is float. Sorry, Boolean. Boolean data type will have two values, true and false. Okay, any condition that evaluates to true will have a Boolean data type, or any condition that evaluates to false will have a Boolean data type. Now, internally, true is taken as 1 in Python and false is considered as 0 in Python. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll explore more about it as we'll go more into programming. The next one is complex data type. It's basically used to represent complex numbers. Okay, complex numbers means a number that consists of a real part and an imaginary part. For example, a plus ij. Okay, where a is called as real part and I is called as imaginary part of a number. So we use complex data type to do complex calculations or computations. This is another reason, because it provides this data type. This is another reason why it is a preferred language for scientific applications. So these are the fundamental data types. We're going to explore, most of the time you're going to use these 4 data types. Okay, let's see the example of these. One more thing that I would like to explain here is operators. Okay. Now, the first in that series is arithmetic operators. Okay. What is an arithmetic operator? Arithmetic operator, it is similar to the operator that you would have learned in maths, that plus is for addition, minus is for subtraction, asterisk is for multiplication, for division, slash is for division, double slash, we call it as floor division or integer division. And then we have percentage for modulus division. Okay, now addition. So for example, let's understand it with an example. Okay, so let's say I have a number. I have 2 variables to store numbers. So number 1 is equals to 10. And I'm going to say number 2 equals to 5. Okay, so I create a variable addition equals to, and I'm going to say number 1 plus number 2. So addition of these 2 numbers is assigned to a variable addition. Now, difference. Let's call this variable as sum. Difference equals to number 1 minus number 2. Product equals to number 1 times number 2. Then you have, let's say, division. Okay, and I'm going to write it as number 1 divide by number 2. The other one, let's say floor division. Okay, or I'm going to call it as integer division, let's say. I'm going to say it as number 1 double slash number 2, and the last one is the mod division, which is equals to number 1 modulus number 2. Okay, now let's print it. Okay, so again, I'm going to make use of the F string and watch this carefully and learn. So f string herein, I'm gonna say f string, and I'm gonna put number 1, I'm gonna say plus number 2, I'm gonna say equals to, I'm gonna use the variable sum because sum is storing the value of it. Okay, so what it will do is it will put the value of number 1, that is 10, the value of number 2, that is 5, and sum is calculating number 1 plus number 2 is storing number 1 plus number 2, so it will store that value in sum. Okay, so let's run this and check. So I'm gonna run this and see it how it is printing. So it has taken the value of number 1, that is 10. It has taken the value of number 2, this one, that is 5, and herein it is calculating the sum of number 1 plus number 2 is stored in some variable. So same thing goes with all the other calculations. So I'm gonna copy paste these and I'm gonna say this is number 1 minus number 2 asterisk division, floor division, and modulus division. And herein I'm gonna say sum, difference, product, division, and herein this one as integer division, and this is mod division. Okay, there's something wrong. Okay, I missed the curly brace here. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna run this code and let's see. See, 10 plus 5, 15, 10 minus 5, 5, 10 times 5 is 50, 10 divided by 5 is 2.0, 10 double slash 5 is equals to 2, and 10 percentage 5 is equals to 0. Now, one thing that you should note and you should know over here is the difference between these three: division, integer division, and modulus division. So if you'll see, in division, it's like normal division. Okay, so the way it works is okay. Okay. The way division works is, so for example, I want to divide 10 by 5, right? So 5 times 2 is 10, right? Some people write this 2 over here, okay? And that is correct as well. So I can write it 2 over here as well. So let me erase this one, okay? So that you understand. Now, so 5 times 2 is 10 and 10 minus 10 is 0. This is how we do division, right? So this value that you see over here, okay, is called as remainder. This is called as remainder. It is called as remainder. Okay, and the value over here is called as quotient. So we call it as quotient, Quotient, quotient. So this value is called as quotient, and the 0 is remainder. So when you do this division, okay, this one, this division, this one, you get the value of quotient. And that is why when I divide 10 slash 5, I got the value of quotient as 2.0. The value here will always be a floating point number. That is a decimal number. Okay, if you'll see the value, this value is actually an integer. There's no decimal point to it. But when you do this division in Python, you'll get the value always in a floating point number. Okay. Now, why this floor division is called as an integer division? Because when both this 10 and 5, both are integers, you're getting the value as an integer. That is 2. There's no 2.0 over here. Okay, and that is another reason why this is called as a floor division. So if numerator, denominator both are integers, you're going to get the value in integer. Again, here also the value will be quotient, okay? But when you do modulus division, this is modulus division, okay? Percentage sign is a modulus division. When you do modulus division, you'll get the value of the remainder, this value, okay? And that is why you see here 10 percentage phi equals to 0, okay? So that's how the things work in Python when we talk about division, floor division, and modulus division. Okay, I need to erase this. Okay, here. Okay, so this is how it works, right? Now it is very important to understand the difference between these three. Okay, now again, more examples and differences are being explained in the tutorials that I have posted, and you can refer the book for that as well. Okay, now one more thing that I want to explain is getting the user input. Okay, so herein I am providing the value, okay, inside the variables number 1 and number 2. But if I want a value from a user, we use input statement, and the way it works is I'm going to say number 1 equals to input, and whatever you want to ask the user, you just put it as enter number 1. Okay, similarly herein I'm going to say input, and I'm going to say enter number 2. Okay, now one thing to notice over here is number 1 is a number. Okay, when you use an input statement like this, it will always take it as a string. Okay, and you don't do addition on strings. We do addition, subtraction, all the arithmetic operations on numbers or floating point numbers, integers or float. We don't do it on strings. So this one has to be converted into either an integer or a float value. And the way you convert this into an integer or a floating point value is you use int outside this, and you're going to put it like this. Okay, so this whole bracket, this whole statement, I've put it inside the bracket int. Similarly herein, I'm going to convert it into int here. Okay, so I put int here. Okay, now see, it's going to ask me the value of number 1 and number 2. I'm going to run this code and let's see. Okay, so it's asking me the value of number 1 and number 2, and let's see. So number 1, I'm going to say, let's say the number 1 is 45, and number 2, I'll take it as 5. And now see, it will take all the values. 45 plus 5 is this, 45 divided by 5 is this, 45 floor division 5, 9, 45 percentage 5 is equals to 0. So here in what we have done is, we have asked the user to input the value of number 1 and number 2. Okay. Now, if you want the values and floating point number, you can write it as, instead of integer, you write it as float over here. So instead of integer, you write it as float over here. Now see again, I'm going to run this code and let's see. Okay, it's taking time. Okay, so let's say the number is 10.5. Okay, the number is, let's say I'm going to take it as 10.5 and let's say 2. So 2, it will automatically convert it into 2.0. So see, all the values are being printed over here. Okay. Now, if you're not sure whether the user will enter a integer value or a floating value, you better write it as eval here. Eval is evaluate. So your interpreter is automatically going to evaluate whether the user has entered an integer or a floating point value. So I'm going to run this code again and I'm going to say 10. Okay, I'm going to say 10. And here I'm going to say 2.5. And see, it has worked. However, if you'll put an integer here, okay, and if you try to put a floating point value, it will give you an error. So for example, here, and let's see if it gives an error or not, okay? Okay, see, it is giving an error because I put an integer here and I'm trying to put a floating, that is a decimal number inside it. Okay, so this will give me an error. So better if you're not sure whether the user is going to input this value, I'm gonna just write an eval over here. Okay, now when you run this, let's see, enter 45 or okay, I'm gonna run it again. I'm gonna say 45, 5, and it has printed the result. So I hope you have understood what are variables, what are data types, what are arithmetic operators, and how to use arithmetic operators in programming. Now your assignment of this week is based upon this knowledge. So herein, if I'll go to modules, and if you'll see lab 1 here, it's pretty simple. Up this, download this PDF. And what it's asking here is, we are trying to make a registration form where, and you're going to ask the user to enter the first name, last name, birth year, and you just print it. You just print it, welcome, the first name, the last name, and yeah, okay, and create the password. So all the instructions are being provided over here. And same thing goes with the second program. You're going to seek a user input, and accordingly, you're going to print the output. The output is being shown in the screenshots. So I hope this is clear to you. Again, if you still have any doubts, please reach out to me. And one more thing that I wanted to show you is the use of VS Code. Okay, so herein we have used online editor, online IDE, that is REPL, but you can also use VS Code. Okay, so let me see, because it's not opening. Okay, here. So here's is my VS Code. Okay, let me close this program. Now, when you open your VS Code, it will basically look like this. Okay, an empty blank screen. Now, if your VS Code is not executing your Python program, what you need to do is you go to extensions here. Herein you put Python, okay, and this one, the first tab that opens Python, you will see a button called as in button with an install written on it. Okay, I have already installed it, so it is not showing it for me, but it will show it for you. You just click on it and it will install Python for you. Okay, now the way you are going to execute your first program is, I'm going to go to this folder. Okay, this is an explorer view. Okay, what I generally do is, it's a good practice to be organized with programming. So what you do is, what I do is I have created a folder with Python programming. Okay, the name of the folder is Python programming. Now how do you open the folder again? You go to file, you go to open folder, and if you'll see, I have many folders over here, okay, but one of the folder is Python programming. Just select that folder And once you select that folder, it will open the folder for you. Okay, so this is my folder Python programming. Now to add a file into it, I'm gonna click on this. Let's say I want to do lab 1. Okay, lab 1.1. So I'm gonna say lab1.1.py. Okay, and this is how it will look like. Okay, let's try to execute the program that I wrote in REPL. So, and where is it? Okay, over here. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy this program and show you, okay? So I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna go to my VS Code. I'm gonna paste it here. Okay, so you see these colors? Well, you can change this. You can change the background from black to white. You just have to go to preferences and change it. Okay, now, so this is how my program will look like. Okay, I have copied the same program that I wrote in REPL, and now I'll just click this little triangle over here to run my code. Okay, and first time when you run the code, it takes a little while. Okay. Okay, so it is asking me to enter number 1, and let's enter the number 1. I'm gonna enter 10. I'm gonna enter 5, and see, it has executed the code for me. So that's how you execute the code in VS Code, and that's how you do the programming with Python. I hope you have understood whatever I've explained in this video, and you'll use this knowledge to solve this week's lab. All the best.